Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so welcome everyone to Wita's Wine with Wita, where I started this segment a few weeks ago as a place for parents just to have a break and just to really enjoy some downtime, as having a glass of wine or having a glass of coffee or anything that you enjoy, just as a way for you to connect and to hear true testimonials of parents that have gone through difficulties with their child, whether it was a disability or, in Steph's case, her daughter that was born with a cleft palate. Now, in speech pathology, we treat many children that have had a cleft palate or even a cleft lip. Now, my previous story, I put some images of what a cleft lip and what cleft palates represent. In Steph's case, she wasn't aware that her daughter was born with a cleft palate. She just found out after she was born. So Steph will give us a great insight into that this evening. But before we get into that, just some debrief into how do we know each other, Steph?
So I did read eyebrows.
Yeah. You used to be my eyebrow lady before you decided to have Tori, right?
Yeah, that's right. It was
and
like,
I will never forget.
You were one of my first, back when did I start? 7 years ago. So
yes, 6, 7 years ago. And I remember messaging you saying, I need to cancel my appointment. I'm in labor or something. And it was like probably the second or first time that I had met you. Like, no, I can't get my eyebrows done.
yeah, that goes back so far, but I know it's...
But look at where we are now, right? Okay, so yes, so you had beautiful Tori just over a year ago. Talk us about your pregnancy and how was that?
Pregnancy was fine. I actually had considering all things and what people go through, I had a pretty easy pregnancy. Not much morning sickness, like off and on, but overall was fine. Baby was healthy. She was growing normal. No hiccups sort of throughout. So it was easy. I mean, pregnancy is never really easy, but it was a smooth,
comfortable.
Yeah.
And birthing process completely fine or limited difficulties?
Yeah, it was, as you can expect, not amazing, hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything went really well. So I went natural, and they did as though, because that just wasn't happening on its own. But after that, I sort of went on its it came quickly. I think it was 6 hours. It wasn't that long.
That's not that long. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, people go for days. So 12 o'clock, I think, I popped my waters, and by 6 p.m. I had her.
Oh, that's so beautiful. She's a gorgeous little girl.
She's so cute.
And so talk us through when she was born and they do all those tests when a baby's born. At what point did they realize, something's just not right with her palate?
So she was born, I mean, that time from when they're born until you're pretty much getting out of the room seems like 5 minutes. Sometimes
it does.
3 hours. So she was born at around 6-ish. I didn't get out of the room. I'm 10:30 or something. So, but she was born. She was on me, and it was all I didn't know what I was having. So first it was the whole it's a girl, can't believe it. What's her name going to be? All that sort of. And then I think they took her pretty almost after that's sort of done, and you're having your cuddles. They take her to give her a wipe down, weigh her quickly, and they do those initial checks. They probably
put the fingers in the mouth,
check their mouth and do all that. So the midwife who I had, I don't know what her name was, I can't remember, but she was amazing through the whole birth. And she was just checks casually, and my husband was standing next to me, and we, in that bubble of we just had a baby, and she sort of just casually, because she initially thought that we knew. So I think she must have had her finger in her mouth and she was feeling it, and she's like, oh, she's got a cleft palate. And we were what? What's that? And then she looked really shocked, because I think she was like, you didn't know? And we were like, what's going on? What's happening? She's like, no, it's fine. It's a hole at the roof of her mouth. And we had no idea what a cleft palate was. So we were just looking at her saying right now, and I was like, does it fix? Is this something that just feels when they grow? And she's like, look, I'm just gonna get a doctor in to come talk to you guys. And then that's when we were like, what is going on? 'Cause
so when they said it's just a hole in her mouth, what was the first thing that popped in your mind when you heard those words?
Like something was majorly wrong.
And I guess with your feelings after just giving birth and your emotions are everywhere and your hormones are everywhere, just hearing this is just like, what the, yeah.
I think I initially just said, give me my phone.
Yeah.
Because
To Google it.
Google
Yeah.
palate. Like, what is that?
And when you saw the images, what was in your mind?
Shock. Because doctors came in pretty quick, and I think our first question, from what I can remember, was, how do we fix it? And they were like, and we were like, okay. So it was just that initial, like, she's just been born, she's got this thing we don't even know about, and now we've been going to have surgery.
Yeah. So a cleft palate is, this is the palate's like at the roof of your mouth, and sometimes when children, they're in the baby's mummy's belly, in utero, the palate doesn't fuse properly, and as a result there's a hole. Sometimes children can present with a cleft lip, so the lips don't fuse properly and then there's a hole there. There could be unilateral, which means one side, or could be bilateral, which is both sides. In Tori's case, was it a unilateral one or a bilateral one, Steph?
Bilateral.
It was bilateral, so it was both sides of the hole right in the center. And so normally, typically, children have to have surgery on both their palate or their lip to ensure that they have adequate feeding, swallowing, and to reduce the risk of them having communication difficulties. Now, you found out, Steph, that your daughter has a hole in her mouth or a cleft palate, and then you've been bombarded with like an ENT, I'm assuming, a nurse, a paediatrician. Who was part of your care at that stage?
So it was the midwives, a doctor, I think, came in to give us I think there was no one there at the time, maybe, that could have sort of given me more info. So the doctor was.
Was this in COVID? This wasn't in COVID, by the way. No. So your husband was able to stay with it, yeah.
So by the time, I guess, I mean, the doctors came in the birthing unit, actually. The doctors came in when we were in the birthing unit. So she spoke to me straight away. Then, obviously, we went to the room and it was nighttime. We slept. Tried to, and then the next day it was like more doctors. I think it was a speech therapist or something, because they were the ones that assessed her feeding, because they were looking at her. Yeah, we
do. So you have to give her, what's that first bit of milk called again?
Colostrum?
You know, that colostrum. Yeah. How did she take that? If she had a hole in her mouth, how did that support her swallowing?
So I'm pretty sure I expressed it into a syringe. They gave me syringes, and then I just squeezed as much as I could into her mouth, or even I expressed as much as I could and then just let it sort of drip into her mouth and sort of see what she was doing with that.
Sorry, Steph, I'm just laughing because I'm looking at who's T making all these comments, and then I realised, like, that looks like Steph. And I'm like, oh, that's your husband. So, Tanus, is it Tanus his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's participating on his other end. You can feel free to put comments for us, Tanusi.
Coming to the hospital.
Like, who's T? Okay, yeah, so they put the colostrum in the syringe, and did they look and realise, oh, the liquid's not going the right way, it's going through into her nasal cavity, or was she swallowing okay?
What I remember is a lot of doctors would come in and they'd test it with they put a glove on and put their finger straight into her mouth and sort of see how she would.
Her suck as well.
I'm trying to move the comments because now T is like.
I'm so sad I can't see your face.
Drop them. So they would.
I don't know.
They would say like, oh, she's got a strong suck. So I think that she would be able to. I mean, she's got the sucking, she's trying to suck, but because of the air, it's not sucking, like the latch isn't there. Yeah, because of the air going into the nasal cavity too, which would have made it hard. So then you've bombarded with all this information about the cleft palate and the hole in her mouth, and you're trying to figure out breastfeeding, let alone being a new mum at the same time. Yeah. What happened when you had to start feeding her? Because I remember, like, normally the first night's generally okay, but come day 3,
your baby's a rocket, like they're crying, they just want to be held all the time and be on your breast the whole time on a bottle. How was that when the likelihood of you breastfeeding was really, really reduced?
Yeah, so they came in a few times to sort of have a look, and that's when I think it was by the next afternoon they sort of concluded, yeah, she can't latch onto. They were trying, I think, to see if she could, but the latch. I think the first night I remember not being sure if she was going to be able to or not. So I was like trying all night, and she'd sort of latch and then delatch, and like it wasn't a proper latch. So I was like full, but then when they came in the next day and they watched, I'm like, she just, like, I can't feel the suction. It's just she's there, nothing's happening. And because my milk wasn't doing anything, so they ended up going to get me a machine to start pumping. Be the only way to start my milk supply. So yeah, so then they sort of said, okay, it's not going to work, we'll go and get your, but they obviously had to wait for a cleft bottle to come in because she couldn't use it.
So when they realized that she wasn't able to latch onto your breast and suck adequately and swallow adequately, did they bring any type of bottles to support her, support her swallow?
I'm pretty sure they called they must have put it through to the cleft clinic at Westmead straight away that a baby's been born with palate, because they called me as well the next day. And then she gave information where to buy the bottles, but she's like, we will send you to your home address a couple of bottles just to get you going. But the hospital will buy one. So they supplied me with one. It was great.
And you just gave her formula, or did you have to pump it into?
Yeah, well, because I had no milk, I guess, at the beginning, and the colostrum was it was hard to get because it was only a small amount. So when they're not sucking it, you're waiting of it, it's dripping onto the machine, or it's like sitting in the cup, so it's not really enough to be like, here, use this. Yeah. So she pretty much went straight away, and I had to use whatever the hospital had, because that was not in my, birthing plan.
Yeah, no. It's not like you asked her in your baby shower, hey, give me a cleft bottle.
Exactly. So
yeah. So you're bombarded with all this information. You've got already, your hormones are everywhere, and then they say, okay, see you later, you're being discharged to go home. How was that? How was that trying to figure out, how do I navigate, firstly, a newborn baby, and then navigating this new diagnosis of my child having a cleft palate? What support did you access or were given, apart from like family and so forth?
The cleft clinic at Westmead was probably our number one info line, because there was a lady there, her name's Nicole, and she's deals with she's the, I guess, calls the parents and makes the appointments and gives you all the information, and obviously has worked there for a long time, so she knows a lot about, this is normal, this isn't normal, and this is what you can expect. But we probably called her a lot more than we should have in the first few months, because everything that would happen, we were like, is this a newborn thing or is this a cleft thing? If this
Can you give us an example of what you thought was a cleft thing and it was really a newborn thing?
She was, I'm going to say, colicky and had a lot of wind.
Did she have a bit of wind? Yeah, because of the gap?
I was like, look, a lot of babies can have wind, but it's from, when they eat and they suck in a lot of wind. And we would try to stop it as much as we could, but we pretty much, when we spoke to the clinic, they were like, well, every time she drinks, the air that's going into her nose, she's swallowing it, and there's no way to stop that. So it's almost like we're feeding her incorrectly every single time because she's swallowing all that wind. It's just going to happen. Nothing we could really do except give her gripe water 24/7. That became we had to.
And did that help her?
It did. We didn't discover it until probably 2 months when we went to see a paediatrician, and we were like, what do we do? Got really bad wind all the time. She's constantly crying. And then he said, give it to her, and he's like, and it's natural, so give it to her in every bottle if you have to. Getting wind in every feed, so she probably needs it in every bottle. So it was like making a potion every time we had to make a bottle. It'd be like, what a
poor thing. And so what point did the hospital staff say, okay, we need to repair this palate? We know that this should be done before the age of 12 months. When were they discussing to you, we should get this sorted out as soon as possible, especially because she was starting to eat solids soon, and you just don't know what's going to happen with the food possibly coming through her nose, and she won't swallow properly.
All the time. There was always would be like, oh, she vomited. I'm like, no, she's just burped and it's just the milk's coming out. It became a thing, like. And then when she started solids, it was like,
how was that?
Every time she would eat and the food would trickle into her nose because she'd push it up with her tongue. That would tickle sneezing. So she'd be sneezing every time she'd feed and food would just fly out of her nose. So it became like, go to sneeze, I'd have to like with my hand, or like we'd go through like a box of tissues every day just to grab, like to catch her sneeze because food would fly everywhere.
So was that with every meal you had with her?
Every meal.
Wow. The hospital, was there any sort of like mold or some sort of shield that they could provide to help her with the feeding process, or they knew that her repair was coming up if there was no need for it?
Yeah, I think there was nothing. I mean, that would have been great if they did, but there was nothing. I don't think that even they have anything that could do that, because also they want them to learn. Like, she ended up, I mean, she was a good eater. Like, people would watch and they're like, really good eater. She had no problem with that, but it was just, it would be, her food had to be really pureed for a long time.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, how long was that for? Yeah.
That was for like pretty much until repair. I could never give her like a piece of food, even if it was soft, to bite and eat it herself, because she would take a big bite, it would wedge up like into that hole. And, so it was,
poor darling.
I got used to it after a little bit. Obviously the first few months were really tricky, but because I'm doing it every day, I guess it becomes normal.
But second nature. Yeah. Now, as I said earlier, children with cleft palates tend to have some communication difficulties, and that communication difficulty is when the child presents with hypernasal speech quality. So hypernasal means there's just too much air coming into the nasal cavity, and they sound very snorty, like this, like that a lot. Did you find that she started to sound a bit like that as she was learning to talk?
Not until close to her surgery, she started to make those grunty sort of noises. It's funny because she would do it more so when she started learning like animal noises, like lions, and she would like get really excited and do a lot of that grunting noises. Because
like like that.
So I'll keep doing it. But they sort of, I remember early, because we started going to the cleft clinic and having appointments from like, I think she was a month old when we had our first one. And the speech therapist that was in the clinic sort of said, if in the future you do notice that because they tend to be grunting noises. Yeah, they do. Discourage it, which I was like, how do I discourage a baby?
How did they encourage you to discourage it?
So I think she just said, just don't, like, sort of ignore it. Like, don't be like, oh, well, you know, do that again, or, you know, make a big deal of ignore it. And get her to make a difference. So she'd do something like that, and then I'd just say to her, like, say mama, and then she'd be like, mum, 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 and then she just ended up not doing it much, thankfully.
Yeah. And you mentioned when I saw you last time, children anyway with cleft palates are prone to having ear infections. How did she get many before her surgery?
Thankfully, no.
Okay.
She like passed her initial hearing test at the hospital, so we were like, okay, great hearing, and then they did a hearing test at the at Westmead, because they know that hearing is often affected from the palate.
It is, yeah.
Like bad hearing loss, because there was a lot of fluid in the ear.
There's a lot of fluid in the ear, yeah.
Which builds up, obviously. So initially in the hospital she was fine, but obviously those few months passed and the fluid had built up, and she ended up they gave us a hearing aid and everything for her to use.
Yeah. And so when she got her repair, her palate repair, did they put grommets as well?
They did. So they went in, they cleaned it out. They did say that there was slight glue in, so which was inevitable. Fluid was sitting
it was
there.
about to happen. Yeah.
But they cleaned it out and they put the grommets in as well.
Okay, interesting. Now, so you've this whole new way of life of feeding her and holding a tissue there so the food is so that you can get the food when it comes out of her nose. How do you continually emotionally support it at this stage, or did you feel you had to always go to the internet or Google to find out, is there hope? What's the long-term impact of my child? What are the implications of this?
Yeah, I feel like I remember there was a time where I started to she would get really frustrated and wouldn't want to eat if she was sneezing a lot during a feed. And then I think as time goes on, you think, like, you start to put all these scenarios together and you're like, maybe she is getting a really irritated, like, nasal cavity from the food always being up there. So it's like, get irritated, and should I not feed her certain foods to not? So I would just Google, like, nasal cavity irritation, palate, like,
is there any sort of remedy for it?
Nothing really pops up. And then I had this, like, she was a really good eater, and then I was like, one night I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, maybe she likes food because she can't taste properly, because she can't rub it against her palate and taste it. So then I was like, maybe she's going to have this surgery and hate everything. Like, much info. So as much as, like, the clinic is there, there's still, like, so many questions in your everyday life that, like, is this normal, or it got to a point closer to surgery, because I was used to it. I just sort of was like, whatever, if maybe this is normal, maybe this isn't, but this is her, and she, as long as she's eating and she's fine, there's not much it's going to be fixed, so whatever.
Whatever the reason is. Were you able to go swimming lessons, or did they say just hold off a little bit?
I don't remember. No, they didn't say not to. I mean, I took her into the pool, but never really dunked her, I guess. Not they did mention after the surgery it was more so for the grommets, but nothing.
The grommets, yeah.
They never gave us the, like, her in the water or sort of thing.
Okay, it's good. So now you've adapted to this way of life, and you know her surgery is coming up. Talk to me with the transition of, oh gosh, my daughter's about to have her cleft palate repaired. Things are going to change. How was the lead up to that? And talk us through the procedure.
It was, I was like, so
to be anxious as anything.
She was originally, and they had booked it, like, early in the year for November. So we were at the surgeon's. It was her last, because they watched her, I think, every month or so for the first, like, several months to see that she was getting properly. So
she was underweight. She couldn't be underweight for the procedure.
They were very adamant that she had to be a healthy weight.
Okay. And
he's like, the surgeon pretty much said, if she's not if she's underweight, then they won't operate, because just they're comfortable doing it. So they sort of monitored her for the first few months that she was gaining weight, and then I think by the nice and full, so they were like, okay, we'll book you in. We don't need to see you until the surgery, pretty much. So they booked in November, and then we were like, all right, too far, it's the end of the year, it's fine. And then I think it was like September, they called me and they were like, oh, we've got an opening. The surgery has an opening in October. Her birthday's the 12th, and they said it was October. Do you want to take it? And I was like,
well, that's right. It was right before her birthday, or after her birthday, sorry.
Like 5 weeks forward. So I was like, okay, you know what? Like, we're at the point now where that I'm already anxious. Let's be anxious for later.
Good. I like that.
Booked it in, and then we were like, we're only having a small birthday with family anyway, so we were like, we'll just do something small, because they also then when we had our pre-admission appointment and stuff, they were like, in the next couple of weeks before the surgery, she can't, like, it's best obviously to try and avoid her getting sick, because if she's really, unfortunately, they don't like to do it, but they can postpone the operation.
High risk. Yeah, no, it's definitely high risk. So you want to minimize any infection or illness, or even people around her that are sick, just to reduce the risk of that, right? So I can just imagine you, Steph, saying, no one come here if you've got sniffles.
Look, when
stay away.
Parents, like, but we're like, we really don't want anybody to get sick, please. So we even, there was some friends that were like, oh, look, we're not going to come over because we're, this kid's sick or this kid's sick. So we're like, normally we wouldn't mind. We don't, you can't escape sickness forever. But
No,
just
you
those,
can't.
like, please stay away.
Yeah. As politely as you can say. So she had her procedure. I remember I was with your sister Danielle at the time, and it was the day before. So how long was her procedure? How did you feel? You mentioned there was a situation in recovery as well.
Yeah. Oh, Rita, you put me on the spot. um,
Sorry.
I don't want to.
If you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to.
But I'm like, you know what? I'm not that mum that's like, oh, my child. Like, I didn't think I was, but anyway.
Yeah.
So this procedure went for 2 hours. So they gassed her, and my husband was like, I can do it. I know that's going to be hard. I was like, I know I'm going to struggle, but I need to be there. Like, I can't just be waiting while you're in there and I don't know what's going on. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I was so nervous, but I held it together until they pretty much put her to sleep. And then, which initially, so that was just like, please go to sleep so I don't have to watch this any longer.
Yeah.
And then I down on the bed and she was like asleep. And then the nurse was like, good job, mum. And that was just the cherry on top.
I would have started crying.
And the whole way she was walking me back to where my husband was, and I was like trying to explain, I'm not usually a crier, but and she's like, it's fine, like you don't have to justify. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, Steph, it would have been really emotional. You've held it all together pretty much since giving birth, and then getting to this stage where it's like we finally got an answer for something, and now she's able to do things that a typical child can do now. It's like a transition into a whole new role again as well for you. So of course it's going to be emotional.
It was like we were so looking forward to it, but then just like, okay, we want this. I remember when we sort of were waiting, like that 2 hours felt like forever, but we were like, so it's happening, but we just want her back. Like we want to be able to hold and deal with it instead of like wait without her
any longer.
They called up, and so we went into the recovery room, and I think I just wasn't expecting the recovery to, like, the way she looked to be as bad. Very like
lethargic.
Yeah, she was very out of it. There was a lot of blood because it's nose and mouth, and because she was numb, the drool was mixed with, was like pouring.
Poor darling.
So the poor nurse was trying to keep her clean. She's like, it's not as much blood as it appears. It's because it's mixed with the fluid. And I was like, no, fine, because it's your child. You're not like disgusted. So she was on me and the nurse was talking. And then I just felt like this, oh my gosh, I'm going to faint. Like, she was this information.
Why am I laughing? I shouldn't be laughing. Sorry, Steph.
Well, I was laughing during it.
Because I'm visualizing you just having a panic attack in the moment.
Yeah, just looking at me, and I just looked at my husband like really calmly, because I'm like, I don't want to make a scene in like the recovery room.
Yeah.
And I was like, can you take Tori for a second? And he's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I'm going to faint. And then the nurse, the color must have left my face, because she was like, okay, sit down. And I was like, no, it's like, I'm fine. But I knew, I was like, oh, I'm really going to pass out.
Did you really pass out, or you just you were just taking deep breaths?
Yeah, they got me like some lemonade and then put me on a recliner chair. It was so embarrassing, and like a wet towel. And I was trying to get up, and they're like, don't get up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, Steph, it's a whole emotion. You deserve to feel that way. Never disregard an emotion.
No, it was, I think because the other kids that were in there they must have had smaller surgeries. So I was like, oh my gosh, everyone, and here I am like on the recliner. But she said that with what she had, apparently was very normal, because it's a lot more than I think you prepare for.
Yeah, some other kids may have had some cleft lip and cleft palate, so that would have been a longer procedure to repair the both. Yeah. So moving forward, it's been about 3 weeks now, you would say, or 2 weeks since the procedure?
3 weeks 3 weeks yesterday,
Yeah, and then just it's by chance I bumped into you that day outside. It was windy, and I saw her, and it was probably a week after her procedure, and she was Miserable. She still wasn't happy.
That was day 9, and that was actually
day
10.
9, you said?
Yeah, that was day 9 when I bumped into you. And 10, she was like, we ended up in hospital that night, actually, again.
Really? Why?
Night. So she kept getting...
was unsettled in the day.
Yeah. I got home, actually, after I saw you. She was really unsettled, and she had a, like, 39.1 temperature. So we were like, hey, why does she keep getting these fevers? Because she had them in the hospital when she was recovering back in the days. So hospital, and I think the cleft clinic must have been off or something, but they couldn't reach them. So she was like, look, there's nobody here that can talk to you, so if you're worried, just come to the emergency. So she ended up being fine, thank goodness. We went back the next morning. We went to the emergency, came home, went back again the next morning, and they checked her. But they said that there was we thought there was an infection, but there was nothing. She
just her body reacting to it. So now are you able to give her solids yet, or do you still need to train? Because you were feeding her puree for such a long time. Do you have to then move into like the harder solids a little bit before you give her full-blown meals, or can you just give her any type of texture now?
So it was after the surgery for 10 days, she was on blended, which she has. What 12-month-old wants to eat? Soft puree food.
No wonder. No, they want chicken nuggets.
Yeah, she was really, really hard, and she ended up sort of not really wanting to eat. And from then, so it was puree 10 days, then transitioning to soft food. So like pretty much what she was eating before: soft potatoes, soft vegetables, like sliced bread. It's nice, and if you squish it up, it's soft. So little things of that, which I was still sort of chopping up or feeding her. But she, of course, there's always difficulties, but she started, every time she would see a spoon, she would like instantly turn her head. So I think she was turned off the spoon.
Yeah. She wants to feed herself.
Wanted to feed herself, or she would only eat from my hands. So I ended up having to just my hands. And now, thankfully, she actually enjoys eating on her own. So I can give her like nuts, and she can like bite into it, which she never did, or just pick it up and sort of eat it without anything getting stuck in her nose or sneezing.
That's such a relief, isn't it?
I'm so proud watching her.
Yeah, I bet. And how has she been since the procedure? I guess she's got this some sort of confidence now that she can eat independently and eat a different variety of foods without mummy modifying it for you. But do you feel because of the repair, she's more vocal, she's trying more sounds, she's sounding different?
Definitely. We think that she went so up and down with her recovery because the minute she was okay, she would be like, rah, rah, talking, screaming, and like,
I'm hearing my voice differently. Yeah.
She would like be in so much pain, and would think like maybe she's exerted herself too much. Stop talking. But
yeah.
And I can make these noises that I could never make before. Now that she's better, definitely making a lot more noises than she used to. But we did notice, I don't know if it's because I think the fluid in her ear is out, she can hear a lot better. She's a lot more, she's still, crazy, I'd like to say, but she's quieter generally. Like she doesn't scream her words like she used to.
Possibly she can hear herself better, so she doesn't need to yell as loud as what she used to.
Yeah. Still like she used to, everyone was mama, obviously, before the surgery, because really say that. So I was mama, dad was mama, Kate was mama, everyone was mama. Now she does see her dad, and she'll try to say dad, but it comes out with the G. So she says
that's okay. It's like gaga. That's normal. Yeah, that's common. So are you now with the cleft palate clinic? Are they going to start supporting you develop a speech production and expressive language, or are they just going to have a wait and see approach for the meantime?
They generally, I think they sort of, depending on what like if I go in and next time speech therapist tell her like, look, she says get instead of the, there's these noises. I think from what I've experienced before, they sort of give you little like things to, okay, maybe encourage this noise or get her to say this or see how she goes with this. And then in a few months time, if that's not working, then we'll sort of take the next step.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Steph, this is been such a lovely process hearing how when you found out she was born with a cleft palate, it's like a full circle of everything just coming to a happy ending for her, despite the hiccups that you've experienced. If you were to meet a mum now who firstly found out her child has a cleft palate and is a first-time mum, what would you tell her to make her at ease?
Honestly,
Would you hug? I would hug her. I would hug her and say it's okay. But what would you say?
what I wish I had was like, I'd
Mm.
say to someone, here's my number, and if you have any questions, you just want to relate with something. Like, you know,
Yeah.
when you have a baby, like, oh, they don't sleep and they do this, and then all the other mums are like, yeah, and then you're like, oh, you know, we're all on the same boat. You want that
Yeah.
with a cleft, like, oh, my baby has a cleft, because it was like, oh, she has really bad wind, but maybe she's got it really bad because my baby has a cleft palate. So can I anybody else that doesn't? Like, not really. I feel, yeah, I would just give my number, and if you just want to be like, this cleft is so annoying, I'm so sick of her sneezing her food everywhere. Like, driving, and I'd look back and there'd just be like food, and I'm like, do I pull over? Do I leave it? Do I reach back and it? Like, gosh, this is so frustrating, but you know, it's getting fixed. So see the light.
But you know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel with it coming up with a few months' time. What would you tell yourself if you were pregnant again with Tori?
What do I tell myself?
Can I just say, just knowing you for such a long time and the difficulties you had with COVID and getting married and the resilience you had with that, I think that also prepared you for the resilience to have with this new change in your life. So I take my hat off to you with just demonstrating such gratitude and resilience through it all, because without that, I don't think you would have seen the light at the end of the tunnel.
That's true. That's true. I think these little things that, like,
They make you stronger.
Yeah, you realize until you're sort of in it that you're like, okay, I didn't think I could deal with this, but I did.
Yeah, you should be very, very proud of yourself. And T, if you're watching, she deserves anything,
Yeah.
everything and everything.
Lucky we had, I guess, each other, because it
Teamwork.
was the initial, during, you know, her 12 months was okay. The beginning and the end, hard.
And
So,
now?
Thank goodness, now it's a lot better. It's a lot
And
better.
she's a gorgeous, God bless her. She is just a darling. Her smile lit up my heart that day when I saw her. So I think there's a question here by Sylvia. I'll open up the chat. I'll open up the chat for people to ask you questions. Steph, can you see them, or do you want me to read them out to you?
I can't. I think, is it questions? No, I can't.
Yeah, so there's one question by Sylvia, and this is a question that we know. Did you have a lot of family support? And just knowing your sister and your mum, and that, without a doubt, they would have just dropped the world to be there for you, Steph. You have such an amazing family. God, I can't just, your mum and Jess and Danielle, they're just remarkable women, and I know they would do anything for you or for Tori. So apart from them, any other family support and friendship support?
Yeah, my husband is the youngest of 6, so he's got a huge family, and they all live close by, and his parents are not far. So literally we had so much help. Like, even after the surgery, in between, like, every time I would go to anyone's house, it was always like, oh, here's food and here's some for Tori. We blended whatever. So always
we blended
her mashed food, and here's this, and I mean, there was so much, and she had so much, like, she's such a lovable kid, and because she gives so much love, so it was very easy for everybody to love her.
And that's all you need, right?
Yeah.
That's all you need, love. That's all you really need in life, just love and smiles. Does anyone have any other questions for Steph in regards to the cleft palate experience that she had? Or comments about Steph and how amazing she is? I think it's always really lovely for people to hear how amazing we are, because we're always negatively minded that we're this, we're that, and we're not good enough, we don't do this well enough. But it's really nice just to hear words just to boost our morale a little bit, especially when we're in a feeling in a bit of a dump situation.
Yeah. I can see Rima.
Rima said she is delicious. Oh, I haven't seen any other. Oh, here we go. How do they actually repair it? Steph knows we love her. That's more of an ENT question. From what I saw with, yeah, actually, Steph, this is your one. How did they repair it?
So this was another thing that it was so funny. I research everything. I'm just naturally one of those people where if somebody, even in a conversation, if I hear something and I'm like, I don't actually know what that means, I'm like, let me Google it. So obviously I Googled everything. So initially I asked them, because a lot of people were like, and I think that's the other difficulty, I guess, with the cleft palate and not having a lot of like out there information. People would say like, oh, how does it get repaired, or how, and I was sort of like, they do something. And then I heard someone say like, well, people they know have had skin, like they've taken skin or muscle or something from elsewhere and used that.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that was, so I think I ended up asking the surgeon, I said, what happens when you repair it? So they said everything that they need for their palate is actually there. It's just not where it should be. That's why there's a hole.
Okay. So they put something like a piece of, like a graft or something to mesh it to, like, how do they actually do?
Slice the sides of like her mouth, like up in that hole is, and I think they pretty much make like flaps out of the skin, and they'll sort of and then they attach the skin, and then pretty much they bring everything to where it is supposed to be. So everything is in there, but it's like a reconstruction, I'm going to call it.
Reconstruction, yeah, that's the word. That's the word we want. Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, so much. I haven't even been through that in my life, and I'm nearly 38. Poor darling, she's only been through that, and she's 1.
And it repairs the cavity down into the mouth. So not like it just repair through stages to sort of heal into the mouth, and that's where the builds, and then it actually ends up closed.
Wow. And like it just somewhat fuses together over time as it repairs.
They, like you said, they pack like a gel foam. So
like there's something there. I saw that in the image, yeah.
I can see it's like a U, and then it's like a down the middle. So they've packed all that. As it repairs from the top, it'll slowly, as the skin is like building, it'll push down, and then the gel foam will fall. It'll be all sealed.
Interesting. Tanu said oh no, that wasn't Tanu, sorry, that was somebody else, sorry. Steph has been my inspiration for, who's that one? Your sister-in-law?
Mine, yeah.
Steph has been an inspiration since the day I met her. Always knows how to get through anything with the best attitude. Tori is one lucky lady. That is for sure. Sylvia just asked, would she need any operations again in the future?
So hopefully not. A lot of people have asked me that, and I'm like, another thing with this whole cleft thing that I'm like, hopefully not, because from what they've said, that the cleft they've got a really high success rate, but it's one of those things, until she develops and there's maybe an issue that they didn't expect to happen, they might need to do this, but generally I think they try and sort of get it done right the first time.
Yeah, she'll likely need speech therapy to help with her pronunciation, but would she need dental work as well?
I don't think for her, because her jaw wasn't affected. Okay. I think if it comes through to the lip, the jaw sometimes separated, but she's got 2 rabbit teeth at the front.
I guess you won't know till her adult teeth come, and then the jaw structure changes as she gets older too. Yeah.
Identity tell me that it can sometimes have an effect later on. So, but again, that's one of those things that
you just don't know. We just don't know, right? We just don't know. So I just wanted to wrap up with something that I do with my girlfriends every morning. I go for an early morning walk, and on the walk I send a little blog on my day. But in the blog, I always talk about what day or what word would you add to your day to make it a better day, or what word would you remove from your day to make it better. So today, yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said the phrase, be kind to yourself. I've had a lot of changes over the last few weeks, and it's been overwhelming. And I said the word for the week for me is be kind to yourself. So I'm going to ask you, Steph, what word do you want to add to your day tonight to make your day better? Or what word would you remove from your day to make your day a little bit better?
I should always plan these things out beforehand because I'm the
This is the best thing. You don't have to plan it. Just whatever word comes to your mind.
to make it. Wait, what am I saying? Something to make it
So
better?
yeah,
Oh,
I've said I'm going to add the words be kind in my day today, so my day can be better. Or like the other week, I said expect. I want to remove the word expectations from sleep. I want to remove the word expectations from my vocabulary because we put too many expectations on ourselves.
yeah. I think, you know what, I'm not gonna claim it as my own, but it's something that my sister always says. I haven't heard her say it in a while, but when I say it, unless she's like knows when I'm getting to it, what I'm gonna say. She always used to say it, and then my best friend was like, "Oh, Jess used to always say this thing, and it's in my head." And I think, I mean, it's hard during the times where even during her recovery, I remember thinking, "This is never
This
gonna
too
end."
shall pass.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, that's so
I
true,
was like,
Jess.
"I didn't know
Yeah,
that."
this too shall pass. It's so true. This
Shall
too shall
pass.
pass.
I kept thinking like this is just her
Just a
recovery.
phase.
Like
Yeah.
it's gonna get better. And even now with like her still being a little bit like the stitches are still repairing, so she's still sort of going through that recovery thing. But every time she starts to get, and I'm like, it's okay. Like this isn't gonna be her. Like
Forever. This is just a small chapter in her life, in her remarkable life. And you're right, Jess, this too shall pass.
very easy to forget, but
You just sometimes need to surround yourself with people who just always remind you of that
yeah.
sometimes. And you're very fortunate to have beautiful sisters and families to keep reminding you that.
Yes, I am.
Well, thank you, Steph. I did a no facial
I
interview
know.
with you today, and I feel so sad because I feel like it would have been really nice to see your facial expressions and
Yeah.
your gestures as you're communicating. But I will save it and I'll tag. Would you like me to tag you so other people can see it too on your
Yeah,
page?
that's fine.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you taking out your time today to give us some insight into cleft palates because I'm sure there's someone out there whose child has been diagnosed with a cleft palate and is feeling the same anxiety and concerns that you have. So you've made someone else's day just that little bit better and educated all the 25 people watching today. Hey, it's something. It's just not my mum watching. To make their lives more interesting.
So you can pass my details to anybody watching. You can pass my details to anyone you know that has or goes through it or has a baby that has it or has one born soon that has it. Just let me know. I'll give you all my
Hey, you might get your eyebrows waxed at the same time because she's pretty good. Well, thank you so much, Steph. It was wonderful talking to you, and I hope you enjoyed Wine with Wita tonight and just reflecting on an amazing experience that you've had with your gorgeous, gorgeous daughter, Tori. And God bless you both. And Tanus, you are remarkable humans.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, have a lovely evening, guys. Wine with Rita will come again soon. I believe I'm going to be interviewing a wonderful woman called Jolene, who is a wonderful autism advocate in a few weeks. So it might be a Wednesday night though, because her child doesn't sleep really well in the evening. So I think it'll be Waters with Wita, drinking water in the daytime with Jolene. So we'll talk. I'll advise you of this all closer to the time. But again, thanks so much, Steph. It was such a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for giving me your honest and vulnerable self.
Thank you.
Have a
You're
great
very
night,
welcome.
guys.
Bye.
See you later.